Hello, Fab Junkie here. Pretty excited because I've been saving for a minute to buy a new cutter head for my Dewalt 735X planer. For those of you that have never used a joiner or a planer with the Shellix helical cutting head, man, I tell you, I bought both my planer and my jointer with the standard knives in them. And I thought they worked really well until my knives on my joiner started getting really wore out and noisy and make a lot of racket. And I went ahead and upgraded. Instead of sharpening the knives, I just upgraded and I got the Shellix cutter head for that. And oh my goodness, what a difference did that thing make. And I knew from then on that I had screwed up not buying the one that came with it, and that immediately I needed the one for my planer. Well, I mean, I put back a little money here and there while I was kind of burning up the blades that were on the machine, and finally I've been able to save up and get me one, and it just came in today. I got it off Amazon. I think it came in 2 days. They had it in stock. I think it was like $450, I guess, something like that. I did get the one that I think it's like 1/16 smaller than the factory cutter head, so that you're supposed to be able to put it in without having to remove all of the teeth or cutters, whatever you want to call them, because it's got a bunch of them on there, and that would be a pain in the butt to have to remove all that stuff. So let me give you a quick look at what came in the box. All right, so here is the box. It came in an Amazon box, and I opened it up, and this was inside it. As you can see, I already opened it up. So first thing you're gonna get with that is it comes with this little sheet of paper that kind of tells you what comes in it, and congratulations, and you know, their website for help and whatnot. And then it gives you this piece of clear plastic. They call it transparency. Apparently you're supposed to use that some type of way when you're helping put it in to keep from hitting the cutter heads. We'll figure that out as we go. And from here, there it is. There's our beautiful cutting head. They give you the tool to change the cutters, and here, this little box, they give you 5 spare cutters to go in there if you nick or chip one or anything. So our next step from here is going to be, I'm going to give you a little demo of what my planer sounds like right now, running a piece of just like probably 4 or 5 inch hickory. I don't know, I'll pick something up off the floor over here, and just what it sounds like and what it looks like after it comes through there. Mind you, the blades that are on this machine right now are about 3 months old. Now, I'm just a hobbyist. I don't run a big shop. I do a little bit of this and that. So this thing doesn't get used every day for hundreds of boards. And these blades were the stock replacement blades, and they're already just noisy and kind of leaving marks on my wood. So I'll show you what this thing sounds like and what it looks like. All right, so this is what I got. A piece of spalted hickory I found, just kind of leaning against the wall over here. It is, I don't know, it's probably 5-6 inches wide. You see this side's already been jointed, so it's pretty nice and flat already. This side has not been touched. So I just cranked the planer down until it just started to move the little arm on the measuring tape on the side there. So we're not going to take a whole lot off of it, but you'll still see how loud this thing is. So here we go. Alright, so there you go. You can see we still got a little section there and a little section here. It didn't even cut it all the way off. So, I mean, I just barely knocked the top off of this, and you couldn't even hear me yelling at you, I'm sure. So, hoping this is going to make a very big difference. I know on my joiner it made a huge difference in not only the quality of cut, because I kind of picked a bad piece of wood because you can't see it. You can feel the lines that it left in this piece, but the quality of cut will be smoother and much quieter. Like I said, I know from the experience with my joiner, it was literally, I don't even know, it's probably more than half the noise. So let's get going and see what we got to do to change this thing. All right, so obviously we're going to start by taking the tool out that comes with it. We're going to pop these 4 screws out and get the top off this thing. get the dust cover or the dust chute off of the inside of it, see what we're looking at, where we need to go from there. All right, so there you go. You see inside, everything's nice and clean. As you saw in the video, I went ahead and blew out the inside of mine, some of the chips and dust and debris and stuff. Do yourself a favor. Don't be like me and just start blowing it out right out the gate. Go ahead and turn your dust collector on because it will still pull through that hole right there, at least somewhat. And pull some of that dust and debris out of there instead of just blowing that crap all over the place like I did and having to try to turn the dust collector on and then turn my ventilation system on at the same time while cleaning it out. So next up is we're going to take loose all of those Torx bits right across there. We're going to remove all three of the blades and the little hold down clamping plate that holds them down. We're going to take all those out, remove all the blades and all three of those. So let's get going. So right now is a good time to point out that these metal plates and especially the blade right down in there is sharp as a razor. So you see on your little tool right here, just in case you've never done a blade swap before, these are magnets right here. You can stick that right down on there, pick that up off there. Now this particular piece is not sharp, but if you get to fumbling around in there trying to pick it up out of there, then you're probably going to get cut. So then you can take this, pick your blade right up off of there, and you don't take any chance of cutting yourself. Now, what I like to do if you push down this little bracket right in here, I don't know if you just saw me do that or not. This little guy right in here on the inside, you'll see spring loaded. It's held by a couple of Phillips head screws. And I'll take this piece of wood that I keep next to my planer. You can rotate your cutter head around. That way you can get to your next screws. You just push this down. You can push down your cutter head with your piece of wood there. Let this guy back up and you're on to the next one. All right, so next up, we got to remove this little guy. That's a little spring-loaded bracket I was telling you about just a minute ago. We got to remove that. That's 2 Phillips heads. Then we're going to remove the handle. Also going to use the tool that came with the machine to do that. All right, well, we got those pieces off now. So next up is going to be to remove those 4 screws. Take this panel off here so we can access the mechanical stuff on the back side. All right, so now we have access to our mechanical parts in here. And ironically enough, you see this spring that's dangling right here? That is supposed to be attached to this guy right here. This is actually the tensioner for your chain right there. So mine was working anyway, because I guess I just don't load it a whole lot maybe. But nonetheless, you're going to take this screw loose. We're going to take this arm off. Then we're actually going to be able to use the Torx bit that came with our new cutter head and take this screw and this screw out and remove the chain and the 2 gears on the end right here. All right, so next up, we're going to need to remove this belt right here. This is our drive belt. We're going to need to remove that. I'm just basically going to kind of pull out on it and rotate it around a little at a time and let it kind of work itself off. Shouldn't damage the belt at all. It's rubber anyway, so you can see once you get it off, you'll see that it's ribbed. It's not hard. You just kind of pull it towards you and roll her around. It'll come right off. Take and kind of stuff it back out of the way. Next up, we'll need to take this loose. I'm going to take and put a soft piece of wood on the inside to hold our cutter head from spinning. and this will take a 24mm socket. All right, so there you can see our naked cutter head in there. I've just got a random piece of poplar that I'm going to stick down in there that's going to hold it in place. And our ratchet and socket, and we'll take her loose. That was not tight at all, really. I'm a little stunned by how loose it actually was. So, I'll go ahead and start working this off here. Okay, so next up, we gotta wiggle this little pulley off. Okay, so you get your pulley off. Now, be careful, because you'll see it's got that little keyway on it right there. Okay, so you do have a Woodruff key right here on the end of this shaft that you do not want to lose, that little joker right there. So you're gonna want to go ahead and pull him on out of there as well. All right. And next up, you're gonna have this big fat snap ring in here. I don't know how well you can see that, it's covered in dust. But next up, we got to get that snap ring out of there. So I think I've got some snap ring pliers around here. I don't know, I'm gonna look and see. If not, I'll probably try to use a pair of needle nose or something like that. So let me see what I can find to get this with. All right, so lucky for me, I was able to find my trusty raggedy old snap ring pliers. So see if we can't get in here and... Oh yeah, that was nice. Nice and easy right there. All right, so next up, we're gonna take this cover off, which is with these 3 bolts right here. And they're gonna use the tool that came with the machine to get this off as well. All right, so next up, we gotta remove, snap ring here, so we can get off the drive pulleys and the chain. Then we'll remove this spring right here, which is the same as the other side, which will remove this tensioner arm right here behind it. The other side, I was lucky enough that I had the right size snap ring pliers. This side, not so much. I don't have any here, so I'm gonna try to make do with these 2 little pick tools. So. All right, so now we got that off. So next up, we're going to need to remove these 3 bolts from this drive assembly right here. We're gonna let this spring just kind of hang here. We're gonna pull this out, but not pull it all the way off the machine because it's got some stuff that's gonna be super tough to line up. So we're gonna pull it out and just kind of let it roll to the side and let it hang, because that's gonna give us access to the end of the cutter head on the back side. All right, so you see we've got the box hanging here to the side. So next up now, we've got the end of our shaft exposed right here. So I'm gonna take this leather mallet that I've got and a piece of hickory here and kind of bump and drive it out. Now, on the other side, when I took it apart, there's a small little aluminum bushing that sits on that shaft that when I took the nut and the pulley off of it, I forgot to take off, but I've gone and taken it off now. It just slides off. It's kind of like a washer, honestly. I'll show you. This is actually all it is. It's just a tiny little bushing there. Like I said, it just slides over the end of the shaft, so you'll see it when we go back together. All right, so now we're gonna see if we can bump this thing out. Hopefully it won't take too much to get her moving. All right, so next up, we gotta remove this helical gear off the end of our cutter head. Now, this takes a 6mm socket or wrench, whatever floats your boat. I was told that these round off pretty easily, but if it does round off, it's not that big a deal. You can take some channel locks and grab down at the base right here where it's a little bit bigger and come right out. I was actually pretty lucky. Mine broke right loose with a 6mm socket, which my planer is not that old, so maybe that's why. I don't know, but that dude just comes right out of there, just like that. Pretty easy. All right, so now we are finally kind of to the point of reassembly. We're going back the other way. So the first thing we're gonna do, I went and got my new cutter head out of the box. Now, I picked it up out of the box with my bare hands. Probably not the smartest thing to do. It didn't cut me, but be careful when handling this thing because these dudes are sharper than a razor. I mean, they will cut you so fast you won't even feel it. So anyhow, we put this back in. Now, I've checked around a little bit, and nobody said anything about putting Loctite on it or anything like that, even though it kind of seems to me like you might want to because there's a ton of vibration in a planer, but it didn't have Loctite on it when I took it out, and, you know, so I'm not going to put it on going back together. Now, I'm going to, once again, I'm going to hold this guy with a welding glove. Now, I've checked around. I can't really find a torque spec for this. Now, mind you, this is a 6mm bolt head, so you're talking some really small inch pounds right here. So I'm gonna probably just kind of get it good and tight and roll from there. I'm not gonna go crazy with it. Just make sure it's snug and it's in there, because if you try to go too hard, you could strip this off, break the end of it off, or damage your threads on the inside, and it's just, that would just be stupid, and it'd be a real shame to tear something up so you couldn't get your planer back together. On a side note, if you remember that spring that I found that was broken on my chain tensioner on the other side, I did find one of those online. It cost a whopping $3.99, and it's on the way, and I will probably be installing it in the next day or so. All right, so next up, I'm going to get our new cutter head and gonna slide that bad boy in through the hole. Now, you remember I got the one that is 1/6, I think it's 1/16 smaller than the OEM cutter head. That way I don't have to remove all of the individual cutter heads. I can just put this thing right on in there. Now, apparently, I did a little research today, and apparently the difference is that it will kind of mess up your measurements a little bit on your measuring tape on your scale. I've got a Wixie Digital, so I can just recalibrate that, and it won't be a big deal. It's just all really boils down to what you want. For me, I would rather have the ease of install. I don't want to have to remove all those cutter heads, and especially when I've got the digital readout anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to put you looking straight through the hole from the drive side so you can see me slide this guy in place. Just a little note to self, I'm also holding this with that same welding glove that I held before, because I don't want my hand chopped up. So far it seems to be going through pretty easily, because of where I've got my joint, or my planer position here. It kind of hits my dust collection a little bit, so I have to go in at just a touch of an angle at the beginning here. That is one snug fit, let me tell you. Just kind of slowly, it's kind of like putting a camshaft in, honestly. Just kind of slide it through. Yeah, these guys are wicked sharp. Now I'm going to take the glove off and hold it by this gear that we just put on. Now comes the real fun. Got to get this guy started. Well, it's not all the way lined up yet. I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, so as you can see, the cutter head is stuck in there. Now this bearing has not quite started into the housing yet. And on this side, the bearing's just starting to touch, okay? So now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna get that piece of hickory that I had earlier and that hammer. I did put a little bit of some assembly lube on the inside of the race where that bearing rides, and I'm just gonna try to tap this thing and drive it into place slowly as I guide it through the hole right there with my other hand. This would be a good time if you had somebody that could just kind of give you a hand. I, of course, don't have somebody, so we'll see how this works out with me by myself. Wish me luck. All right. Well, there you have it. She's all seated in there nicely. I will say it went in very, 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 very easily. Now, just one quick note I will say. The end of this shaft is threaded, so we got to remember that. So my original plan of getting a piece of hardwood and bumping it in there. I did not do that because I didn't want to take a chance on damaging these threads right here. I mean, odds are good it probably wouldn't have, but why take the chance if you don't have to? What I did was I put a little bit of some assembly lube on the inside of the housing on each side where the bearing slides in. And then I just got a piece of poplar that I had laying around because poplar's pretty soft and put it on there. And I just slowly, I just took my time and tapped that thing home. I didn't have to hit it very hard. It drove in really, really nice, really smooth. It was really clear when it bottomed out all the way in there. I hope everybody's goes that smooth. It went really easy for me. So now, next up now, we're gonna put our drive assembly back on right here. You remember we just kind of rolled him off out of place, so we're gonna stick him back up, roll him back on there. I'm gonna spin my cutter head first, make sure she spins nice and smooth, and then if all goes well, we're gonna slide that drive assembly back on there and put our 3 bolts back in place and put her back on. Okay, so got our drive assembly on there. That was no problem. I spun the cutter head, spun nice and smooth. Then I stuck my drive assembly back up on there, just kind of wiggled it a little bit as it went on there. It went on great, no problems. Everything still spins nice and free like it's supposed to, no problem at all. So now I'm gonna put the tensioner arm back on, which actually I didn't have to take off, but whatever, I did. So we're gonna put the 1 Phillips head back in that, put it back on. Gonna slide both sprockets back up on here with the chain, then reconnect our spring and go from there. All right, so there you go. That's all put back together. Easy peasy. Exactly the way it came apart. I mean, there's really nothing difficult about it. The only thing that you have to remember, though, is do not forget these little snap rings. As much of a pain in the butt as they are, they're going to be a lot bigger pain in the butt if you forget to put them on. So you got the 1 Phillips head. Hook your spring back up right here, 'cause that's for your tensioner. Put them back on. The shafts are keyed, so they're really easy. It's kind of foolproof, really. Like I said, make sure you get everything right. Then you're going to stick your cover back on here. Put these 3 bolts on, whatever. Put them back on, and then we'll move to the other side. All right, so next up, we're going to put our big snap ring back on this end. Oh, that was easy enough. Next up, remember that bushing that I told you about that I forgot to take off first time around? There it is. So that guy slides back on the shaft right there. Remember our little tiny key? We gotta put that on our shaft right here. Get him locked in place right there. Next up, we've got our pulley. Slide him on there. All right, pulley's on there in place. Now, there again, this is one of those areas where they don't tell you to put Loctite on something, but I'm gonna put just a little drop of Loctite on there just to make myself feel better, I guess, just because. And then you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna get a piece of wood and put up on the top side to hold your cutter head from turning so we can tighten this up. Like I said, I didn't get carried away. I just threw a little dab on there. Get my nut. Start him on there. Yet again, they don't offer a torque spec for this, so I guess it's just good and tight once again. I've already got my piece of wood up inside here, kind of locked against a couple of my cutters here because this thing was not very tight when I took it apart, so I'm not going to go crazy tightening it back up. There we go. I think that'll do it. All right, so next up, we're gonna put our little V-belt back on here. So look up in there, make sure she's still lined up on top. Can't really see it good, but it shouldn't be off. So basically, I'm just gonna kind of stretch it around there and just kind of roll it on. I'm not sure which direction I want to go just yet. So there we go. Just kind of, just like you would do, you know, on a car or anything of that nature. There we go. Once you get it started, it's not hard at all. You just kind of push it in as you're going around, and it'll slowly work its way over those grooves, one at a time. I think I got one more groove there. Yep. There we go. I think that's got one. Nope, I got one more to go. There it is. Now she's in there. That was simple enough. Next up, we'll throw our chain on. All right, well, chain's on. Everything's pretty much reassembled at this point. I got to put this idler arm back on, which also you'll remember you'll have a spring hanging down right in here. Mine was broken and I didn't know that. So actually, if this whole thing was not good for anything, it was good for me figuring that out. So I'm gonna put this idler arm back on there. The spring will be in here in a day or so. I'll put it on. I don't know if I should run it without it or not, but apparently I've been running it for Lord knows how long with the stupid thing broken. So I'm going to go ahead and run it that way. The new spring should be here in a day or so. I'll pop the cover off and put it back on. But I'm going to put this back on with my one Phillips head. Then I'm going to put this side cover back on. Then next up, we'll stick our wheel on, put the one bolt back in that. So there we go. Got my cover on. Put these 4 bolts in. Just got to snug this one up right here. That's in there. So next up, we'll put our adjustment wheel right here. Put the one bolt in that. All right, so both sides are all buttoned up. So next up, we've got to put this plate right in there that locks it up, the piece with the spring on it. And you have to be very careful when putting this back on. These screws are shoulders, so you do not want to over tighten them because you will strip them out if you do that. All right, well, here's an interesting little tidbit here. On this guy right here, you see he moves up and down nice. Apparently, the main body of the Shellix head, the shaft itself, is a little bit bigger diameter than the original cutter head, and that thing wraps around and does like this. Well, on the insides of these teeth of this piece, they would not go around that. Now, I did a little research online, and some people said, oh, take a hammer and just whack it a couple times, it'll go down on there, and that just didn't really seem like a cool idea to me. So what I did was I just took a little angle grinder and just knocked a little bit of material off each side of the inside of it. It went right down on there by hand, no problem. Put the screws in it, everything worked great. All right, well, all we've got to do is put our dust collector, or not dust collector, our dust hood back on, covering our head, and put the top back on the planer itself. We'll be ready to fire this thing up and give her a whirl, see what it sounds like and what it cuts like. All right, so time for test this thing out, see how it sounds and what kind of finish it produces. You remember before we had kind of a groovy finish with the blades. They're kind of nicked up even though they were still new blades. And noisy, holy cow, was it noisy. So let me kick on my dust collection and we'll run this piece through and see what the difference is in sound. right before, I'm bringing it down just enough so it moves the needle up. Not even a 30-second. We're just gonna kind of knock the top off of it. But before, it was so loud you couldn't even hear me when I was trying to talk. So let's see what we get now. It was hitting it. It barely made any noise at all. Let's hit it again. So there you go. The finish is, I mean, I couldn't imagine it being any smoother, really. I mean, you could sand over that with some 220, and you could paint it no problem, or stain it. It's extremely nice, and the noise is, wow. I mean, it's less than half as loud. I'm super happy with this purchase. I'm looking forward to putting this thing to work. I fully expected it to be that good, because like I said, I have the same cutter head in my joiner. I would definitely highly recommend it, and it's definitely worth the money. So I hope this helped you. Originally I was gonna kind of time lapse and show me doing like all the work and everything like that, and then I realized that we really don't need a 45-minute long video, because this is all really remedial stuff. And take out a couple Phillips head screws, just slide parts off. There was no particular calibration that had to be done or anything like that, so it was pretty easy. I just want to show you what parts have to come off, what order they have to come off, and go back on. That way you can just get through it. This is really an easy job, something you'll get through really fast. Enjoy your new cutter head. Fab Junkie, out.